Hello, this presentation has been created for attendees of ICAPs 2021 and is an overview of career opportunities at Smart Information Flow Technologies, abbreviated as SIFT. So I'm just a little bit about me. I'm the person on the bottom of the slide. So my name is Mark Volovich. I'm a major in the U.S. Army. I also have a PhD in machine learning, and some of my interests are listed here. But there are going to be a lot of attendees at ICAPs from SIFT. The one I want to highlight the most is Dr. Robert Goldman, who is one of the co-chairs for ICAPs this year. He has more than 2 decades of research, and he's kind of been there from the beginning, from planning under uncertainty. And I don't want to go too much into detail on his bio because I'll probably won't do the best job representing him. He can certainly speak for himself, but he's been around for quite a while, and he knows the company for because he's been here for quite a while. Some other key attendees or people who are attending ICAPs this year. So you can see Dr. Goldman is up here. I'm down here in the bottom right. But we have some other people that if you see in some of the virtual chat rooms, the events, feel free to ask them what their experience is like at SIFT. Ask them about our projects. David Musliner has been around as long as Robert has. And I won't go into a lot of detail on all these people, but we have a fairly strong presence at ICAPs kind of regularly. So this presentation is organized into kind of 3 components. The first is, what is SIFT? Like, who are we? The second is, what kind of work do we do? And the third is, why should you be interested in working with us, right? So for the first piece, who are we? We are a 50-person small business, primarily based in Minneapolis, but we also have a branch office in Boston. And we're essentially a lot of, really geeky, nerdy, smart people who like to do really cool research, right? Most of us have advanced degrees. Most of us have 1 or maybe more master's degrees. I think maybe about 40% of the people here have a PhD. We have 1 person that has 2 PhDs, and we've been around for about over 2 decades now, and we've been growing at a very fast rate, about 30% a year, which is extremely fast for kind of any business. We're probably going to slow down that growth a little bit because it's hard to sustain that amount of growth over that amount of time. But we've been very successful by kind of any metric. We've been doing, industrial research and development, which I'll talk about a little bit in this next slide right here. So what do we do, right? So SIFT, in a nutshell, is a research organization, okay? And we focus on basically creating solutions to computer science problems and related areas. Some of the work that we do is developing prototype software systems. Some of them is just demonstrating novel research concepts. But really what we're trying to do is apply the knowledge that we have and the unique tools that we have to real world problems. So some of the historical customers that we've had are shown on the left. We've had contracts with NASA, with the National Institute of Science and Technology, or SIFT, and with a slew of defense-related organizations, including DARPA, Army Research Labs, Air Force Research Labs, and there's actually too many to list on this slide. If I put every single agency that we work for on this slide, it would be too small for you to read. So the way that our business really works is these agencies will put out what are kind of like help wanted ads. They'll say, we want something that does, blank. We want something that can do this. And maybe they want it to be fast. Maybe they want it to be robust. Maybe they want it to be more efficient, right? Or maybe they just want it to be able to do something that isn't even possible when they're making these announcements. And so what we do is we actually bid on these by submitting a proposal to one of these announcements, and we secure our contracts by basically demonstrating that we have the best available people and tools to solve this specific problem that they're asking for. We don't always work alone. Sometimes we work with larger organizations. A few of those are listed at the bottom of this slide. So Lockheed Martin, Raytheon BBN, and BAE are companies that we worked for in the past. And the type of project I'll get into a little bit more, but this slide on the right side has a few of the areas that we're looking for in cyber, which is our biggest need right now, but it's certainly not the only thing that we work in. So the way that this kind of works is just to go through some very high levels of the examples of how this works. So suppose a customer says, I need an interface that can handle more than one UAV, right? Maybe right now, if you want to fly a UAV, you can get, an Xbox style controller and you can fly the UAV and it can go around and look at things, right? But suppose you want to control 5 UAVs with one person, or 10 UAVs, or 100 UAVs, or 1,000 UAVs with one person. Those UAVs need, unique interfaces, and the UAVs need to be able to understand high-level commands so they can operate and actually go accomplish the task that they're given. And we have been doing a lot of research in this area for a couple of decades now on a number of different programs. So that's one example, right? Another example, and these are what the customer is asking here. This is a very kind of watered down, simplified version of what they're asking. But another example is this was a Mars project that we worked on. With if astronauts are going to go to Mars, they face a number of challenges, right? They get exposure to radiation that they don't get even if they're going to the moon. They have a very long journey, which requires its own kind of logistical support, and they're going to lose muscle mass on their way when they have to do a lot of hard work as soon as they land on the surface. But another one is they're going to be in this very tiny space capsule for a long period of time as they're traveling, and that can create some very negative psychological issues for them. And so one of the things that we did with a program called Ansible a few years ago was we created a virtual reality system that astronauts can use to basically experience, wide open areas like very large ballrooms, or go out for a walk in like a park and see green trees and things that they just can't see if they're locked in this tiny space capsule on their way to Mars for weeks. And there's a very good demo for this. I encourage you to go look at that demo video on our website. The bottom two examples are cybersecurity examples. So these would be good ones to talk with Dave Musliner, who's one of the other attendees at ICAPs. He knows these programs inside and out. So suppose a customer comes and says, hey, I need a security system that knows when it's been compromised and not only detect when there's an intrusion, but I want it to be able to fix itself. It needs to be able to heal, right? We've done work in areas like that. Or suppose that I want a security system that can identify software vulnerabilities in existing code, but you can't actually see what the programs are doing, right? You don't have access to any of the higher level functions. You can only look at the individual bits of programs, and you might not even know what those are, right? This is a very challenging problem, but we've done work in that area. So this is kind of the business model that we have. So we do work in a lot of different technology areas. I've listed, this isn't even a complete list, I don't think, but this is kind of an overview of the different areas that we work in. I'm not going to talk about all of these in detail because I want this to be kind of a higher level presentation of SIFT and what we do. But if any of these areas are interested in you or interest you, please feel free to go on our website and read more about the existing projects that we have at SIFT. The main purpose of this slide is just to show you that we do a lot of really cool work in a lot of different areas. With all of that, the next question is, well, why is SIFT special? Why is SIFT different from other companies that are out there? Because there are a lot of places that do research, right? And there are specific reasons that I myself decided to work at SIFT and why I think that some other people work for our company. So the first one is that we only do research, right? We focus 100% of our effort on taking things to the next level and just pushing the boundary of knowledge and ability with each project. So if we've developed an interface that can control 100 UAVs, then let's make a new one that can control 1,000 UAVs, right? So rather than kind of freezing what we're doing and putting into something that's real, we're really just pushing the limit of human knowledge, and then we're either demonstrating it with a simple prototype system or a software demo in a lot of projects that we have. The second thing is we have top experts in a variety of fields. So there are other smaller companies that do research like we do. They tend to be a little more focused in one or two areas, whereas we have a lot of different areas that we work in. And what this means for people, for potential applicants, is you can get exposure to a variety of different projects that you can work on. The third bullet is basically we're a small company that has minimal management. So for anyone who's worked for a large corporation, I myself used to work for Microsoft for a brief period of time. You'll know that there's a lot of paperwork, and the larger the organization gets, the more paperwork and the more process you have to deal with. And we really don't like any of that at all. So our company was really set up so that people could do high impact research on things that they really are passionate about and apply them to real world problems so that their research can have the highest impact possible, right? And to do so with minimal management. And so we only have one person who's in dedicated leadership position here, and that's our vice president. Everybody else is working on projects. They're either leading projects or they're supporting and helping accomplish the research projects that we have. We're also very selective with the people that we hire because we want to stay very light on management. We want to continue to hire people who are very smart, very proactive, and don't really need a lot of hand-holding at different steps. And so what that means is that you get to work with some very talented people, which is always fun. So really, you get to do what you want with minimal management, and you get to work with really talented people. And that's really what I think makes SIFT a very unique place to work. The last bullet is competitive salary and benefits. So I would never encourage someone to work at a company just for the salary or just for the benefits. But I'll go in those in a little more detail in the next slide, just to show that we try to take really good care of our employees. So the first benefit of SIFT is that you have the flexibility to do whatever makes sense for you based off of what's going on in your life, right? Whether you have a family, whether you're doing continuing education, or you just want some extra time off, or you want to work extra hard, you decide how many hours you want to work in a week. If you want to work 30 hours a week, you can work 30 hours a week. If you want to work 60 or 70 or more hours a week, you can do that as long as we have the work available. And the nice thing that we do is we actually pay you for overtime. So going back to my experience, not to knock on Microsoft because it's a great company, but any salary position that you have, you're only getting paid 40 hours a week, even if you work more than that. And so every time that we had a test build at Microsoft when I was working there, you would never work 40 hours a week. It would always be 50 or 60 hours a week, but you're still getting paid the same, right? At SIFT, we pay you based off of how much work you're doing, right? So that's a really nice benefit that a lot of people like. We also have competitive dental, life, disability insurance. I won't go into detail on that, but because we're a small business, one of the first questions people ask are, well, do you have the same benefits as larger businesses? And yes, we have very good benefits at SIFT. We also have 20 floating paid holidays off. So we don't really do like set holidays like Christmas or New Year's or the 4th of July or anything. You just choose whichever days you want to have off, and you can take those days off. And one of the reasons that we did this is because when SIFT had 5 employees, there were people from 3 different religions. And so rather than try and fix all of this, our vice president just said, pick whichever days you want off and just take those days off. You have 20 days off every single year, right? So I think those are divided into 10 holiday days and then 2 weeks of vacation, but it's kind of all the same. So the next benefit is a 401k matching fund. So a lot of companies have 401ks, obviously, but there's 2 unique things about our 401ks, at least compared to other companies that I've looked at. The first is we have a lot of different funds that you can pick from for 401ks. I think we have between 50 and 60 different funds you can look at. And the second is there's no vesting schedule for our matching contributions. So some companies will say that they match up to a certain percent, but then you have to work at the company for a certain number of years before you actually get the full match. And that's designed, other companies do this to try and keep people around for longer periods of time. We want you to stay at SIFT because you love doing the work that you're doing and you love working with the people that you're working with, not because you're waiting for a benefit. So we don't hold anything back. We do full matching funds. There's no vesting schedule, so day one, you get the same match. Home office budget. So I talked a little bit more about, a little earlier about just the very flexible work schedule that we have, right? So we were set up to do remote work 100% long before COVID came. I started as an intern at SIFT back in 2016. And even then, if I wanted to work every single day from home, nobody really cares, right? No, if I want to come into the office and work 9 to 5, I can do that as well. It's whatever, whatever works best and whatever your preference is. Now, part of that is we give employees a home office budget, because one of the first obstacles that companies noticed in during COVID is employees were complaining because they some of them couldn't bring their equipment home. And if you have to buy all the stuff that you need to actually have a home office, like another monitor, a chair so your back doesn't hurt, or a desk or whatever, you're spending a lot of your own money just setting up your home office, which really isn't fair. And so we've had, and we're years ahead of other companies in terms of remote working policies. We give every single employee a $2,000 a year budget just to buy whatever stuff that they need to optimize their home office, which is a really nice benefit to have. So whatever you need, whether it's a computer monitor, a bookshelf, ergonomic keyboard, or whatever, headphones, you can use your home office budget to purchase those things. I'll talk about the last two bullets kind of quickly. So we also have two different bonus programs for contribution. So one is for individual projects and one is for the entire company. So on an individual project, let's say that I'm working for somebody. Let's say I'm working for Robert on a project, and he says, Mark did a great job on this project, and he was one of the key people. He really helped us get over the finish line and get this stuff delivered, right? The program leads can basically distribute bonuses based off of technical merit and contribution, right? So for individual projects, and that's part of one of the things that we do to help recognize people that are doing really good work here. The second thing is when we have a really good year at SIFT, oftentimes we'll pass on the benefits to other people, and that can be in terms of extra vacation time or potentially like 401k contributions. So when the company does well, our VP does a really good job of trying to pass those benefits on to the employees, which is really nice. The last bullet on this slide talks about continuing education assistance. So because we're SIFT and we don't like to have lots of policies and procedures, we don't have an official policy for this, but we've had multiple cases where we help people with tuition assistance who want to continue their education. So for instance, if you just finished your bachelor's degree and you want to go for a master's degree and you're a full-time employee here, we'll probably help with a good chunk of that, right? If you want to pick up a certification and improve your skills in a certain programming language, we can probably help you with that, right? And so those are all really nice benefits. Again, I would never encourage someone to work for someone just because of the salary and benefits, but those are something that's nice I wanted to highlight. The last thing I want to talk about is, before we get into the actual hiring stuff, is about working in Minneapolis and Boston. So our main headquarters is in Minneapolis in Minnesota. We also have a branch in Boston, and I can't speak for Boston because I haven't lived in Boston, but everybody that I know that works out of the Boston office is very happy there. I can't speak for Minneapolis though. Minneapolis is a really nice place to work. If you can think of anything that you want to do as hobbies, you can probably do it here. We have all 4 seasons. It's not the cold is not as bad as some people think it is. My wife is from India, which is a very warm place, and I don't think ever wants to leave Minneapolis because the people are so awesome here and the cost of living is so low. And this is one of the things that was kind of surprising to me when I was looking around. There's actually a DICE report from 2019 that you could go look at if you don't believe me on this, but Minneapolis has the highest adjusted average tech salary once you account for cost of living, because we have a much lower cost of living than most other urban areas. And that was something that I found very interesting. So I could talk for probably about 2 hours about how awesome Minneapolis is, but if you want to hear more about why I like Minneapolis, feel free to hit me up in one of the chat rooms in ICAPs when I'm there. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about who SIFT is looking for. Like we are hiring, we're growing, we've been growing by 30% a year, and we'll probably grow a little bit slower going forward, just to kind of avoid some of the bad things that happens when you grow up really, really fast. And so what we're looking for right now, there's a couple different positions, right? So if you're a PhD and you're interested in applying to SIFT, you'll probably be applying for a researcher position. If you have a bachelor's degree, you'll probably be applying to an associate research position. If you're a master's degree, it kind of depends on what your level is and how well the skill set fits with us, whether you start as a researcher or associate researcher. But those are some of the full-time openings that we have right now. And then we also hire interns on a rolling basis throughout the year. So if you're a graduate student or you're a junior who's going to be graduating, in the next 18 months, so I guess this would be like May of 2022. I encourage you to apply for our intern position. Our intern positions are very, very competitive because we usually get a lot of applicants and we don't have a lot of slots. We want to make sure that interns get a really good experience and have good mentorship, and we don't want to take on more interns than we can effectively mentor, and we want to make sure that you have a good experience. So but I encourage you to apply if you're still a student, whether you're in grad school or an undergrad, to the intern position. And we as I said before, we accept interns on a rolling basis. So the most of our interns come in the summer just because it's the lightest academic semester for most students, but we can certainly adjust to non-traditional programs. I actually worked for one summer when I started as an intern in 2016, and then I continued on projects part-time for another 3 years roughly after that. So what are we looking for, right? So the number one quality that we're looking for in people is we're looking for smart, talented, proactive, very independent, very passionate researchers and programmers. Okay, that is in our minds the number one kind of person that we're looking for. We do have some needs in different areas. So cybersecurity is the area that we are kind of looking for the most right now. So if you have a cybersecurity background, or if you have a background in a similar area and you want to learn about cybersecurity, we're looking for people in that area. That's probably our number one need right now. We're also looking for people who have experience in natural language processing. But if you're in any of the areas that's listed on our website and any of the areas that we're working in, I encourage you to apply to our position. So you can find a little more information if you go to our careers website, which is www.sift.net/careers. But there is one big hard and fast rule that we have to abide by, which is we're restricted to hiring only U.S. citizens or permanent residents, which is green card holders. And that's a really unfortunate, restriction that we have, but because we work for the federal government and most of our projects are with the government, we can't even let someone who's not in one of those two categories interface with our systems, right? So we can't sponsor people. Even if you have a right to work visa, we still can't hire you. We really can only hire citizens or permanent residents. That's just one thing that we just don't have any wiggle room on. So how you would apply, the best way to apply is to email your resume with an email text body that's kind of a cover letter to hiring@sift.net. You can also apply through Handshake if you find our Handshake post. And some of the things that we look for, just to get a sense of who you are, we'll look through your email and we encourage people to highlight, here are the kinds of projects that I'm interested in. Here are the kinds of projects I want to find out about more that SIFT is doing, right? So it's as simple as that. It's really just an email with, kind of a high level overview of who you are and what you're looking for. And I strongly encourage anyone to apply. And if you have questions, feel free to email the hiring distro lists. I'm also on this list, so I'll see it and I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have. I will cover a few commonly asked questions that I get because I talk with a lot of potential applicants. So the first question, just to reiterate this, is can I work at SIFT if I'm not a U.S. citizen or a green card holder? And the answer is no. This is something that we just don't have any control over. So again, if you're not a U.S. citizen or green card holder, we can't sponsor people. Even if you have a right to work visa, we just can't accept someone if they're not a U.S. person, meaning they're a citizen or a permanent resident. And I say that again because some people, just think there's some kind of a loophole they can get through, and there's not. Second question I often get is, how do I find out more about SIFT projects, right? So for past projects, you can go on our website. under the research page, so sift.net/research, that lists all projects by research area. Most of the people who are in here, because this is a planning conference, are going to be interested in planning and intent recognition. And so I would look at that first, and then you can look at the other areas that we work in. There's also, I believe, some demos hosted on this site where this video is being played. But if we have a more complete list of demos on our demo site at sift.net/demos, which also give you more information about past projects. Current projects, the best thing to do is to talk with some of the people that you're interested in working with in terms of what their backgrounds are. So we have 8 people at ICAPs this year. I would encourage you to talk with them and ask them what kind of things they're currently working on. And as far as future projects, you can kind of do the same thing in terms of talking with people directly. Next question I often get is, I don't currently live in Minneapolis and I don't currently live in Boston. So can I work for SIFT if I don't want to move, right? So the answer to this is we really very strongly prefer new hires to live in Minneapolis or Boston, and that's primarily for your benefit. And here's the reason. That might sound a little strange because we're set up so you can work 100% remote, but there's a very important reason for that, and that is if you come in, no one else is going to know you very well, right? And it's much harder to establish connections with other people remotely than if you can talk with them face to face, even if it's only once in a while. So even though I like to work remotely all the time, there are days when I want to go into the office so I can talk with people face to face. And it's just much more efficient, especially with large groups of people, to interact with people face to face than it is online. And so I think in our history, we've only hired one person who we've let work 100% remote, who doesn't have any experience with the company. And they didn't move to Minneapolis or Boston. It's exceedingly rare. And the reason why is because it becomes much harder for you to learn about other people at SIFT and about our projects. And what it really ends up doing is it ends up restricting the opportunities that you can have in terms of choosing what kind of work you want to get into, which gets into my next question, which is, how do we choose who assigns people to teams? How do you decide who's going on what team, right? And ideally, again, because we're very light on on management, we don't want to assign people to projects. Okay, we want people to choose the kind of work that they want to do based off of project availability, right? So I'm actually leading a project right now, and I needed some interface help, and so I went to a couple people that I knew were good at designing these things and said, "Hey, are you interested in doing this?" And if someone thinks that your work is cool and it's really fun and it's up their alley and they're really interested in it, they'll jump on your project, right? And you can go out and talk with people who are leading projects and see what they need from help, right? Now, when you start, that's really the only time that we'll typically assign people to projects, because you don't know enough about the company yet. And so it's going to be much harder. We don't want to overwhelm you by trying to pick projects while you're also trying to get set up at the company. So typically what we do with new hires is we'll assign them to 1 or 2 projects that you can start on based off of your background, your skills, your interests. And then eventually in the future, you can pick which projects you want to work on based off of your interests and the connections that you make with us. The other thing I want to highlight about this is, if you have an advanced degree, if you have a PhD or you have a master's degree, you can go out and secure your own work in whatever area that you work in, whether we're currently working in that area or not, right? And I'm currently leading a project. Robert and Dave and the other people who are heading ICAPs, a lot of them have led a lot of different projects. They can talk with you more about this. But I get questions from new PhD applicants or master students about, well, I don't know how to write proposals. Like, I've written reports, I've written papers, but I don't know how to write a proposal. I don't know how to figure out how to actually secure funding. The good news is that we can teach you how to do that. So I'm one of the students who's learned how to do that here at SIFT. So one other thing I want to highlight is just that just because we're not doing something right now, if this is a passion and you have the background, you can go secure funding so that you can do work in pretty much whatever you want. So with that, if you have additional questions, please reach out to one of us at ICAPs, and I'm sure any one of the 8 of us who are there Would be very happy to talk with you about our individual projects. I encourage you all to apply by emailing your resume to hiring@sift.net. I'll see that. And if you have other questions that you can't get answered, feel free to email that with any questions that you have. Thanks a lot for your time, and I hope you enjoy the ICAPs conference.